And then implementing a TQM program, first you want to list all the problems of what you're trying to solve. You prioritize them. So why? You only have a limited amount of resources. Okay. Next, you want to develop a detailed cost-benefit plan. So what do I want to do? I want to get the biggest bang for the buck. So when I develop this cost-benefit, so if I'll say I looked at 10 different types of TQM opportunities for improvement within processes or procedures, I'm going to look for the ones that reap the biggest rewards. It could be cost savings or improvement in services. So I want to prioritize those particular ones. Okay. Why would management need to be involved? Why would I need to get my manager involved in what my priorities and what my expectations are? Everybody needs to be on the same page, and more importantly, expectations are set, right? Okay? Because again, everyone else in this whole class, when you go out and get a job, there's a thing called performance appraisals. It's almost like a report card, but it's on you. So every year you're going to go through this performance appraisal. So the feedback I'm getting from my management, I'm letting them know, one, I'm doing my job, right? But I'm also finding ways to continuously improve the organization. Okay? My expectations are aligning not only with theirs, but also the ones of our customers and the corporation in this case. So assembling the team, and it breaks it down into that. One is a process improvement team. Has anybody ever been involved in a process improvement opportunity? How about you've all worked on projects, right? Class projects? We've got a lot of seniors in here, right? You've had, I don't know how many class projects you've had. Every class has a class project, doesn't it? Of some sort. I have one too, right? So if you can improve the process on this class project, what would be the one thing you'd want to improve? Okay, that's a good one. Okay, don't wait till the last 3 weeks, right, of the semester.
Are you kidding? I'm talking the day before.
Yeah, okay, the day before. No, that's a process improvement. What else would you want to do with your team? With your final project team? Okay, communication, right, would be one. Okay, how about expectations? Right. Does anybody ever document the documentations? Ever? So you meet with a group, you got what? Say you got 7. Say you're in Jack's team, right? Part of the process improvement is going to be, well, we're going to document everybody's, right, duties and responsibilities. Okay. But again, why do you want to do that for? So we know exactly what everybody's expected to do, right? I know what my expectations with the rest of the team, right? Okay. Again, working with people, defining the problem, identifying the root cause. The root cause of waiting till the last minute, right, to complete that. Maybe the quality isn't as well. Maybe the preparation time isn't enough. You all pull it off, right? I've been in your seats. I've done the final projects too. You always seem to pull them off at the last of the semester. And all you want, is finish that last slide. Thank you, everybody. Everybody claps and you're off, right? But that's here at school. When you get to your careers, it's a little bit different. Because once you finish a project, do they remember you and what you did for that project? It's like, oh no, don't send Jack back. Whatever you do, do not send them back. So this is the basis where you start. This is where you start the quality, okay? Measure the results, as we mentioned before. Benchmark and baseline. In some cases, benchmarking other organizations. Okay, maybe you benchmark another class and another project. And you come to find out that they had a little cheat sheet that they pass out. You know, I've got the names and lists up here, okay? But maybe that particular class, okay, that team, they pass out this little cheat sheet and says, okay, you've got this, you've got that. And it's like a little benchmark opportunity. Says, you know, I like that. It's pretty clear. So you use that, to your advantage, okay? And the other one would be the baseline is to determine on how they present. Maybe their presentations, they integrate them with their PowerPoints. And maybe by each one of the individuals' backgrounds, where their finance, their liberal arts, their engineering, and their architecture. So maybe they break up that particular project presentation equally, depending on what their fortes are, right? Okay. Keep it simple, eliminate complexity. Okay. Again, Leonardo da Vinci, keep it as simple as possible. Don't make it complicated. Well, total quality management, everybody has to understand it, okay, to be successful. And then develop some sort of measurement plan on how I plan to measure if I'm improving, losing weight. Okay, I have a goal within the next 6 months to learn or lose a certain amount of weight, right? So part of my measurement, my baseline, if you will, every month this is going to be my routine, and then I'm going to ratchet up, get more aggressive. So by the time I get to that mile point, maybe the halfway mark, that's going to be my first marker. Okay, am I on track? Am I on target? Okay. Now, value improvement programs, kind of flipping that over a little bit, considering the long-term maintenance benefits of an effective and efficient design. Okay, so value engineering is not engineering all what I would consider the key attributes of a design. Okay, so I can value engineer an air conditioning system, just put evaporative cooler, right, and save all kinds of money. I mean, I can get master cools and they're pretty good, right? Okay. So that's not it. You're not value engineering what I would consider the core, the prime. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Validating values, optimizing the capital investment would be the first one. I've got to get a return. So somebody's funding that, aren't they? Somebody's providing me the funds, maybe for a renovation or for a new building, or maybe it's some sort of tenant improvement, or maybe it's a system upgrade. So somebody is funding that particular capital dollar. So my job as a facility manager is to determine what the return on investment is and what's going to be the benefits of the organization. But I want it long term. I don't want it just for that 6 months or for that year. So when we design and we also implement and execute, this is going to be a long-term solution. Okay? Now what about the next one? Systems integration. What do you think that means, systems integration? Integration obviously is tying everything together. But why would it be important to tie in?
Some systems don't work with other systems.
No, they don't, right? So they actually work against one or the other. So I have a value engineering initiative, okay? And say I've got a project and I'm going to maybe renovate, say it's a bank. I'm going to renovate a bank, okay? And part of that is going to include, renovating the vault itself and the door and the alarm systems and so on, okay? So part of the systems integration is what can I integrate with the existing infrastructure that I have? Now that's value, because I already have an alarm system. I don't have to replace it, but I can enhance it maybe with some software upgrades. So that's a value engineering opportunity. I still have an alarm system, but I'm just enhancing it. I don't have to replace the components or the infrastructure, okay? And then determine the outcome of that particular value. What do you want to solve with it? So in my particular case with the bank, a base that's operable, right? It's secure. I can put my money in it, okay? And it's something that's going to be certified and measurable, okay? Now we get to the value engineering part. This is an organized effort to assess the functionality of the entire systems and process. So holistically, I need to look at the overall system. So let me flip this around. Say, for instance, as a class, we've been asked to design, let me see here. We're going to design a warehouse in the middle of the Antarctica. How's that? So we're an A&E firm. Everybody in this, we all have a job in this one here.
We're going to store ice cubes in it?
Okay. So we got this request, right, from a client. And they want to have us design and build a warehousing facility in the middle of the Antarctica. Okay, so value engineering. Okay, let's look at cooling. Am I going to be more worried about cooling than I am heating? Well, depending on what the warehouse is going to store, right? If it's ice cubes, I need to make sure it's below 32 degrees, right? But in one of those cases, value engineering, maybe the air conditioning systems are not as aggressive versus if I built a warehouse in the middle of Death Valley. So there's some value engineering opportunities there, right? Okay. Another value engineering opportunity may be in power, right? Ever see the shows where they have the Antarctica? It's always windy. For some reason, it's always windy in Antarctica. Don't ask me why. So opportunity maybe for some cogen or maybe some wind or some turbine, okay? Another value engineering opportunity, right? Okay. Flip side, insulation. This particular warehouse, we're going to have to make sure that it's insulated depending on what we're going to store and who's going to be there, okay? So that would be one example. Elimination of non-valued functions, okay? So these would be the frivolous items. So say, for instance, in this warehouse in the middle of Antarctica, the customer approaches and says, I also like to have a hot tub. Wow, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Antarctica, that'd be perfect. But would that be considered frivolous for this particular application? I mean, if they were selling hot tubs to the Eskimos, maybe not, right? I need that in my showroom, right? So that might be a little bit different. But this is not. We're storing ice cubes. So in those particular ones, you value engineer the items that are not really necessary, okay, whatever the application is, okay? How about the next one? Focuses on the core needs. Well, the core needs for this particular warehouse versus if it was a university campus is going to be storage, it's going to be lighting, it's some sort of climate control, some sort of security, right? Some sort of alarming system, fire protection systems. So you can identify what the core is, okay, that value engineer, and then work out from that, okay? And it is not a design review. So I'm not designing. Right now I'm brainstorming. I'm identifying attributes of this particular design or application that I can value engineer out. Now, this is where maintenance comes in. What's one of the dangers when you value engineer too much out of the design or engineering effort? What can you do accidentally?
Well, the process won't flow correctly because you took something out that you probably shouldn't have.
Okay. You know, I know they called out, right, they called out for 200, horsepower pumps, right? But I can get 275s on discount. And look at that, I can save X amount of dollars, right? And right now the calculations are within 99%. But the engineer put in maybe 115% factor, depending on the fluctuations of the use of the building, right? So I can value engineer the 75 horsepower pumps versus the 100s. But what does that do to the entire infrastructure? What does that do? Does it compromise the system? Sure does, right? Okay. And then maintainability, 100 horsepower pump versus 75. Longevity, two different applications, right? 100 horsepower pump is designed for that. 75 is going to have to work a little bit harder. Okay. Do you remember the locations I shared before and where these pumps were located and so on? Part of the value engineering is I'll build one platform, put everything on that utility platform. However, for me to get up to that utility platform, I got to crawl up 2 flights of stairways with an extension ladder. Okay, so again, this is a case where you apply the value engineering in a wrong perspective. Okay, so it's not a design review; it's a brainstorming. Okay, this is where you're going to evaluate the overall concepts, and it's not intended to rectify design omissions. So value engineering, I'm not identifying what the deficiencies are. What I'm trying to identify what's considered core and what's considered non-core, and then work from that. First thing that comes across, well, let's value engineer or reverse engineer. Okay, so let's pull everything out that we possibly can. Let's get it down to the bare bones. Well, from the owner client, that's perfect because that's the dollar. I don't want to spend $4 million in this building. I want to spend $2 million. So we value engineer it. You can get your building for $2 million, but what's the byproduct when you're done with the building? Okay. In my facility, we're building. I'm going to call it a big metal shed, but it's about 7,000 square feet. And they just poured the footings for that, okay? So on that, when we were watching this going on, this construction project, we noticed that a lot of the rainwater was pulling. I need Sanjini here. He's perfect for this civil, right? We noticed that a lot of the rainwater was pulling on the backside of the building. Well, I have no drainage back there. So that was our first clue, right, that we may have a problem. Because once the building stood up, I can't get back to that part of the property. So guess what happens? Here comes a change order, right, to reconsider the drainage and make sure that I don't have a pond in the middle of August with mosquitoes in it, right? So again, part of the value engineering, if you go back to the project design, well, civil, you know what, this is a desert. How many times does it rain here? Well, what I'm trying to solve is when it does rain, it doesn't pose additional problems. In this case, here's going to be a drainage problem. Okay, so here's some of the phases that you've got, and it's in your books. Okay, the first one is going to be the information phase. I want to capture the information that's going to apply to the value engineering model. Okay, so what part of information do I need? Do I need to talk to the customer, the client? Sure, I do. Right? And what some of the questions I want to ask them is, what are you trying to solve? Okay. What's your benefits? What's your expectations? Okay. This flip side on this information phase, contractors, should I be talking to the contractors? Say that we're evaluating the value engineering for this warehouse in Antarctica, right? So we'll want to talk to the contractors. What type of materials will you consider in using? Well, we want to use wood versus steel versus masonry. Maybe they want to come in and they want to stand up, a big tilt panel, right? Because I can build that, but it's freezing temperatures. What's it going to do to the concrete? So again, the information phase is exactly that, identifying what I need to process. What do you think the speculation phase is? I think maybe it's assumptions. Okay. I'm assuming that when I'm done with this warehouse, right, it's going to support whatever products I'm going to store in there, and it's going to provide some attributes such as maybe general, office area. Maybe it's going to have a data center, depending on what it is. But the speculation is what the assumptions are going to be for this particular project. So the assumptions, when you value engineer, is to identify what are we planning to propose? What are we going to engineer, okay, into the equation, the core, okay, and what's going to be considered engineering out, okay? Now the evaluation phase, so speculation, evaluation phase, and the development phase, so I'm going directly from information to the development phase is what's going to be the parameters. If I pull too much out, we just agreed as a class, if I pull too much out, okay, from this particular design, it's going to affect maintainability. Okay, putting up a utility mezzanine, if you will, and I have no access to it. And even then, all my equipment is on this mezzanine, and I have no access when it does come to maintain or replace a component. I got to replace 2 or 3 items of that drainage I was mentioning about in my building. Okay, and then of course the last phase is going to be the presentation phase, and this is what I'm going to present my outcomes, my value engineering outcomes, to the client. Now again, getting back to the priority and back to the core, right? We value engineered what we considered was non-essential redundant properties and attributes of the design. Quote unquote, all the maintainability attributes are still embedded in your design. None of that was compromised. Okay? That's going to be the other important factor, okay, in regards to value engineering. Okay? Does anybody ever remember getting your first car? Anybody remember that? What, you turned 16, 17, 18, right? And what was your thoughts when you went down to the car lot with your parents? What type of car did you want to get?
One I couldn't afford.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a value engineering, right? Because your expectations when you went down to the car lot, it's like, no, wait a minute, Dad. This is the used ones. We got to go over here on this side where the new ones are at, right? It's like, oh, I'm sorry. It says, no, we got to look over into used cars for, again, value engineering, trying to find a vehicle that's going to be affordable for the family, right? Because again, did you have a job at the time? Okay. If you did, great. Now you got some negotiation power, right? But if you're not, if you didn't have a job, you're kind of at the mercy of what they're going to. So, you learn quickly. Okay, this is a value engineering opportunity here. So the best I can do is at least get the color I want, and maybe get one with some of the features, like maybe a stereo system and a sunroof, or maybe some of those functions. One, especially in Arizona, air conditioning would be another one, right? It's got to have air conditioning. Don't give me a car with no air conditioning, right? And again, your parents are going to buy you something that's safe, but using that analogy, 2 different ones, a new car or a used car. Value engineering, the core priority is what? Having transportation. What gets you from point A to point B is another story. Okay. So validating the value, so optimizing the capital investment systems integration, that's going to determine the outcome of that particular value. Okay. So again, I get back to that vehicle analogy. It's going to get me to school. It's going to get me to my extracurricular activities, and it's going to do it safely, right? And it's going to be within the family budget, okay? And the same item within the building. It's going to provide the building attributes if it's a TI, tenant improvement, or new construction. But at the end of the project, it's going to fulfill what I've originally expected, okay? I didn't have a building that's not engineered right.